Will, welcome into the game. I hope all is well, man.
Hey, man, I'm doing great, Ryan. I'm just starting to calm down a little bit.
Gotcha. All right, so this is the theme today. We're asking people to be completely honest. 9 minutes to go. Georgia just hit that tight end down the middle in the third quarter. They were already up 28-14, possibly about to go up 17-21. Did you still believe that Alabama had a chance?
Yeah, I did. At no time in the game was I just totally frantic. It was a tough game to watch, but we've talked about this earlier in the year at some point. We've played really well this year, and at no time this year did we just have our absolute worst game. And that's what happened, man. We had our flat out by far worst game of the year. I mean, everything that could go wrong did, and it was looking pretty bleak. I mean, we were dropping passes left and right. It was just missed assignments. We were getting blocked on defense everywhere. And to Georgia's credit, too, now, as bad as we played, they were whipping us. Now, for the better part of three quarters, they were beating us. They were out-physicaling us. We talked last week, Ryan, about I was going to be watching the line of who's going to be winning the line of scrimmage, who's going to be winning in the trenches. And Georgia was winning now. They were beating us up front, especially defensively. Their offensive line was blocking us pretty well, and they were having a lot of success running the ball. Their backs were running very physical. A lot of credit to Kirby and Mel Tucker's Coach Share. Those guys, man, they outcoached us too, I think. They were ready for Tua and our passing attack. Their secondary disguised really well. They baited Tua into some throws, and he also didn't make his best throws on those couple interceptions and a few others. And they shut us down on third down for the majority of the game, which has been a real weapon down for us this year. They mixed up their blitzing. The delayed blitz was especially effective. They kept having success there. They were bringing different guys. They were dropping at times. They were all over the Wildcat plays when we put Tua and Jalen in there. So, a lot of credit to Georgia and their staff. They came ready to play. And for 2 years in a row now, they've really brought the fight to us for the majority of the game. But, for different circumstances last year and this year, for whatever reason, we were able to find that extra something and come back and win the game, which is ultimately what it's all about. And, of course, this year, I mean, what more can be said about Jalen that hasn't been in the last 48 hours probably? I mean, just an incredible, incredible story of that guy. In the same stadium, the irony of it is just what's so crazy. Against the same team in the same stadium that he gets benched last year, he comes in the game and wins the game. And not only does he win it, but he does it by doing the things that he was benched for not doing in the first place, converting on third down, throwing the ball downfield, staying in the pocket, finding the open guy, making those plays. It was just incredible to watch. I mean, I'm still having trouble comprehending everything that I watched on Saturday.
Well, there's so many different things that we can discuss here for just a couple of minutes, and I want to go because I want to pick your brain defensively for Alabama. What were we doing? Because I noticed that, and I don't know how to describe it other than it looked like that we were playing what I would say a 3-3 stack. Is that right? Or a 3-2 stack? I mean, because we were not shaded in the gaps. We were kind of lined up, maybe right directly behind the defensive lineman. Is there something we were doing there? We're trying to keep them from gashing us up the middle, and maybe we wanted to let them run outside. What were we doing? Do you know?
I'm obviously not on staff or on the team anymore, so I can't speak to our exact game plan and that much intricacy. But I will say that there's no doubt Georgia must have done a lot of things that we weren't ready for because there was a lot of times defensively that we were still trying to get lined up. We had guys on the wrong side of the field or in the wrong gap, or Mac was trying to tap some of the guys up front over a gap or whatever. I mean, many times they were snapping the ball and we were not ready and set defensively. And on top of all that, I mean, man, it looked like our first game all over again. Like I said, it was just a horrible, horrible game for us almost all the way around for the majority of the ball game. I mean, we got beat up front. We had no edges to the defense. More times than I can count, had no contain. And when we did, we took bad angles. We got cut off on the inside. We missed tackles. We weren't wrapping up well. You name it, man, we did it on defense. We just made so many mistakes in the game. And fortunately, we pulled it together and made some big stops down the stretch when we had to. But I also think that has a little bit to do with Georgia starting to play a little bit more conservatively, just like last year. So we definitely didn't play very well in the secondary, especially on the back end at the safety spots. Wasn't the best game out of our two studs back there. They made a bunch of mistakes, missed some tackles. They made some plays on the outside too. When they caught us in man-to-man coverage, Ridley, those guys, they made some plays on us. And Fromm, man, now Jake Fromm is a great quarterback. He's a very good player, but he was playing out of his mind. I mean, he was unconscious. It reminded me so much of Steven Garcia at South Carolina in 2010 when it just looked like he couldn't miss a pass. I mean, that touchdown in the third quarter that he dropped over the shoulder, I mean, that was an incredible throw. I mean, it was inch perfect, and it seemed like that the majority of the game. I mean, everything he threw seemed to just be right on the money to the right guy, and they made a big play out of it. Credit to him for playing a great game the majority of the game, but for whatever reason, down the stretch, we were able to make the plays to make the difference. It was tough to watch for a lot of, there were so many plays. We can go back to drops, especially the most glaring. There were so many plays that just seemed like this is not our day. It seemed like Auburn in 2010 when Mark fumbled the ball and it rolled 6 inches from the sideline for 20 yards. It just kind of seemed like Georgia's day for the majority of the day. But lo and behold, did we know that it was just a setup for the greatest comeback story of all time.
Will, when you kill a rattlesnake, after you cut his head off, he's still the venom is still poison. I have to ask the question, how do you beat Alabama? I mean, because you cut their head off, you throw it in a bucket and throw it in a trash can, and somehow they get up and bite you again. I mean, if you're sitting there as a dog, and I know we're looking at it from a Crimson Tide perspective, you have to say, forget it. How do we beat these guys? I mean, I would be so frustrated because I would, knowing that your team gave everything they had and still couldn't take down Alabama.
Yeah, man, it's got to be a very helpless feeling. I mean, we're in a very, very unique position right now with the two guys we have at quarterback. I mean, both of those guys are proven winners, proven competitors, proven champions. And, man, it's just so tough to come into a game. I mean, I feel for Kirby and those guys, man. I mean, they had a great game plan to stop Tua in our passing game, and they did a great job of it for the majority of the game. And who's to say if we'd have brought if we'd have brought Jalen in or not, if Tua doesn't get hurt, I don't know. It's just tough to say, but it's just so difficult because those two guys are so different in the way that they approach the game and the abilities that they bring to an offense and the way that we play with each of those guys in is so night and day different. It is two completely different offensive attacks you have to be ready for. And did Georgia drill for when Jalen came in the game? Yeah, absolutely. But they didn't plan on him coming in and running the offense down the stretch, and you could tell they weren't ready for it. It just totally threw them off. The coaching staff, the players, you could tell them immediately the first third down, they sit back and play coverage, and they give Jalen the time to sit in the pocket, and he finds Irv for the first down on third and long. And then the next third down, they bring the heat. They didn't know what to do. They're trying to mix it up, figure out how to get to him. And credit to him, man. That guy, that gamer stuck around when Kelly Bryant, everybody else is transferring. He sticks around. He continues to work on his craft, and he gets his number called on the biggest stage in the SEC championship. Basically the national championship, in my opinion, or kind of a little early in the postseason, I guess. But I would absolutely put Georgia up there with any other team in the nation. He gets his number called. He comes in and he shows how he's grown, hitting receivers downfield, staying in the pocket when he could have run, keeping his eyes alive when he did roll, making the plays, man. It's just an incredible, incredible life story for that guy. So hats off to him, and you just gotta, you feel for Georgia. I mean, they were the victim of this unbelievable story. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond. They seem to remind me very much of Alabama, my freshman year in 2008. When we kind of had established ourselves as a national power again. We were dominating a lot of people, but we just couldn't quite get over that fourth quarter hump against the best teams at that time was Florida and Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow and the Gators. We were able to For a couple of years there, we were able to compete and get there, but then, we just couldn't get over that hump. So it'll be fun to watch how Kirby responds, the changes he makes to try and get that program over the hump going forward. But, man, it's going to be real tough with Alabama right now and Tua and the players that we've got, the skill players that we've got, and some of the recruits we have coming in, man. It's going to be really, really tough.
Will, I love to get these defensive guys into a perspective. Should Tua Tagovailoa be the Heisman Trophy winner?
Yeah, absolutely, in my opinion. I think he's done more than enough throughout this year in his body of work to win the Heisman. I mean, he's done an incredible job of leading an offense with very high expectations. He came into this season with incredibly high expectations after, when you go back and watch the national championship last year and you read the storyline, how do you follow that up? What's the encore to that performance, And what's he done? He's come out this year and rewritten all kind of records at Alabama, and he's done it playing how many percentage of the snaps this year? I mean, it's down to two guys, in my opinion. I mean, I don't think that Haskins is in the discussion. I think it's him and Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray's a great player now. He's a great athlete. It's going to be fun to watch him play baseball at the next level and watch his career continue to play out. But as far as this year, those two guys, when you compare them, now Kyler Murray's done a great job. He's put up some unbelievable numbers. But, if our defense was anywhere near as bad as Oklahoma's is, and we had to play our best 11 guys on offense for all 60 minutes every ball game, I mean, Tua would have rewritten every record, I think, in college football history, to be honest with you. I mean, we brought Jalen in a lot this year, still in the heat of the game, and for good reason. Obviously, it's great that we kept him around. It's just more kudos and hats off to Coach Saban for being the mastermind that he is, knowing that we may need him to step in at one point. So, I'm glad that we did. But if you leave Tua in for all four quarters, there's no telling what his numbers are. And, I mean, to be honest with you, Ryan, when I watch Big 12 games, it makes me sick, man. I mean, the defense is just so poor. The level of play is so poor. So, and when you consider that they're out of conference game this year, their big non-conference rival game this year was UCLA, who was, it's UCLA. Yeah, you schedule the games in advance. Do you think they're going to be a good program? Yeah. They were 3-9 this year. They were horrible. It was a major rebuilding year, number one of a rebuilding period for them. When I compare the two guys and you see what Tua did and his opportunities, if he would have been given the same opportunities that Kyler was throughout the season, I think that their numbers would be very in line, if not Tua's extremely even more yards, touchdowns, everything else. But, he only had to do so much, which is just a credit to this team. And that's also what it goes back to. This award typically goes to the best player on the best team. And I think it's by far the Alabama Crimson Tide this year, the best team, and he's by far the best player on it. I'm anxious to see how the "what have you done for me lately" taste sits in these voters' mouth with this last weekend performance. And again, if we don't have those two huge drops, you're talking about another potentially up to close to 75, 100 yards of passing and another one or two touchdowns for Tua if Judy and Irv make those routine catches. So even on his worst day, his stat line still shouldn't have been near as bad as it was. Over the course of the season, I think for sure he's proven that he's the best player on the best team and head and shoulders above the rest. But, we'll see. I know there's been a lot of talk today about it. Apparently the odds have shifted back in Kyler's favor. It'll be a really interesting vote to me. We're going to learn a lot about how the Heisman voters see stat lines and how they compare, a guy that doesn't have to play the entire game and kind of his efficiency versus, just 60 minutes of gross high as you can score them, high as you can ring them up numbers.
Well, and certainly it's always presented by R&R Cigars. I will tell you in the last couple of seconds, the Heisman Trophy has put out 3 finalists, Dwayne Haskins, Kyler Murray, and Alabama's Tua Tagovailoa. They will be headed to New York City, and I hope they can roll him up there and keep that pressure off that ankle, man. But let's talk about R&R Cigars and talk about, as we proudly present Will Lowery every single Monday, talk about R&R Cigars and the great job they do there on 6th Street here in downtown Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, it's a great spot. They've obviously got really good cigar selection. You can go in and catch the latest day's sporting news. They've got really good premium spirits as well for some adult beverages. It's a really good spot, and there's going to be a lot to talk about leading up to the games here. It's a great atmosphere to come in, catch up on some news, watch some games. and chat about the playoffs we got coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun talking about these two teams in the build-up. And, I really wish the Heisman staff would just say, let them play it out in the semifinals.
Oh, yeah.
And give it to the victor.
Hey, I will, and that's a show for later on. I don't know why we had to vote by 4:00 today. It's stupid. Why? Anyway, don't get me started on this, man. This is I'd love to see us in the postseason. Will, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, and we'll break down Oklahoma next time, man. I appreciate you being part of the show.
Sounds great. Thanks, Ryan. Always enjoy it, man.